Tonight's Beneath the Wrong-Colored Moon, The Man Who Rode Past Midnight by C.W. Boylan. The desert cooled quickly after sunset. What heat the day had carried slipped quietly away into the wide emptiness of the land, leaving the sand and broken stone holding only a faint memory of warmth. Night settled across the basin the way it always did in places far from the towns and roads, slowly and without ceremony. Silas Crow chose the rocks carefully. A jagged outcropping leaned together in a crooked half circle, forming a shallow pocket against the open desert. Anyone approaching would have to cross the bare ground below. He liked that. His horse stood tethered nearby, head low, shifting its weight now and then, but otherwise calm. The animal trusted him. Animals usually did. Crow spread his bedroll on the hard ground without lighting a fire. He didn't need one. The moon was more than enough. It hung low over the desert, swollen and bright, pouring pale light across the sand. The glow flattened distance and carved long black shadows out of every stone. Crow glanced up at while setting his revolver beside the bedroll. "Lucky night," he muttered. The moon was full and big, bigger than he remembered seeing before. He lay down and closed his eyes. For a while the desert stayed quiet. Then something moved, not close, but coming closer. Crow lifted his head slowly. Two shapes crept across the moonlit ground below the rocks. Men moving low, careful. He heard whispers. Crow rolled onto one elbow and picked up his revolver. "The town already?" he muttered. Figures moved closer. The whispers drifted faintly across the desert. "Let her go." Crow stood in one quick motion and fired 2 shots. The revolver thundered across the basin. The shadows stopped. The whispers stopped. Crow waited. But nothing moved. He climbed down from the rocks and walked to where the figures had been. The moonlight stretched across the empty sand. There were no bodies, no footprints, nothing at all. Crow turned slowly. The desert remained silent beneath the bright moon. He spat into the dirt. "Drinking too much," he muttered. But the words stirred a memory. A tavern window, a girl walking beneath the moon, and a voice shouting, "Let her go." Silas Crow had ridden into town while the last heat of the day still clung to the dirt streets. The tavern smelled of whiskey and dust. Crow pushed through the doors and knocked a man aside hard enough to send him stumbling. "Whiskey," Crow said. The bartender reached for a glass. Crow reached past him and took the whole bottle. He left a coin and carried the bottle to a poker table. "Deal." Cards slapped the wood, and coins shifted. The bottle lowered steadily. With each drink, Crow's temper sharpened. By the time he'd noticed the girl outside the window, the bottle was already half empty. She walked quietly along the boardwalk. The moon hung above the streets behind her. It was full and bright and white. Crow stood. Outside, he caught the girl by the arm. She jerked in surprise. "Easy now," Crow said. He started dragging her toward the alley. "Let her go." Crow turned. A young man stood in the street. "That's my sister." Crow released the girl. Then he shot the young man in the chest. The girl screamed and grabbed for her fallen revolver. Crow shot her too. The street felt silent. Then the mother came running. She collapsed over the bodies and looked up at Crow. "You'll answer for this." Crow shrugged. Her voice hardened. "You'll ride all night and never outrun it." Crow's expression tightened. "The night will take you before morning." Crow had had enough. Firing one more shot from her revolver, he sent her to go along with her daughter and her son. The sound rolled away across the desert. As he mounted his horse, he glanced over towards the sky. The moon still hung above the town, but something about its color had shifted. The white glow now carried a faint yellow tint, almost green. Crow frowned at it for a moment and then rode out of town. The second camp lay among low brush where the desert dipped into a shallow basin. Crow checked the ground carefully for the tracks before laying out his bedroll. There were none. Satisfied, he lay down. Sleep came quickly, but it did not last long. Something moved again, closer this time than it had been at his previous camp. Crow crawled through the brush and peered out. Two shadows slipped between the shrubs, whispering. "That's my sister." Crow's jaw tightened. He raised his revolver and fired. The muzzle flash lit the brush and the shadows vanished. Crow pushed forward, searching the sand, but there was nothing. There were no tracks, no men, only the desert. Crow looked up. The moon now burned a sickly greenish yellow. The light made the land look diseased. Crow cursed under his breath. That old woman. He packed his gear and rode on. He needed to find somewhere that he could get some rest. That town incident this morning had thrown everything off. He knew of a cave. He would make his way there. No one else knew of it, and he could finally get some rest. The cave appeared ahead as black cut in the rock. Crow led his horse inside and sprawled his bedroll near the back wall. Before sleeping, he stood outside the cave for a long time, watching the desert. The moon climbed slowly across the sky. It was huge and yellow and wrong. Eventually, Crow lay down. Sleep took him. Then the voices came right outside the cave, almost from within the cave. "You'll answer." Crow jerked upright and fired. Once, twice, 3 times. The flashes lit the cave wall. Something struck him hard. Crow collapsed. His revolver fell from his hand. Warm blood spread beneath him. He had been shot. The cave fell silent. Crow waited for the men to rush in. They never did. After waiting a moment, Crow realized they may not be coming. He had to see what was happening. He struck a match. The tiny flame flickered weakly in the darkness. The cave wall stood only a few feet away, with 3 fresh bullet scars marked the stone. Crow stared in disbelief. Slowly he understood. The rock had thrown the bullets back. The match burned lower, Crow dropping it. The moonlight crept slowly across the cave floor. The greenish-yellow glow reached him where he lay. Crow tried to move, and he couldn't. Somewhere in the quiet, he thought he had heard a woman's voice again. "Before morning." The moonlight climbed across the stone until it reached his face. Outside, the desert remained perfectly still. By the time the moon passed the mouth of the cave, Silas Crow had already ridden past midnight. And the night kept its promise.